Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co., and this is going to be an unboxing and rambling for Resident Evil the board game from Steamforged Games. There's a lot to get into here, not least of which Resident Evil the board game, wait, coffee shot first, all that stuff, and I do in fact have a new knife over here. This is actually gifted to me from Sean Peck, who has done some videos on the channel, but this is, this is cool. I like this. It's like a little, kind of a Native American feather situation thing going on here. Although this lever over here does not go out as smoothly, but it does functionally work. But either way, let's go ahead and get into everything today. If this knife will close, I love when nice. There we go. There's some things they get a little locked up, but let's start with a bunch of things. Let's first move these boxes to the side. And Resident Evil the board game is the first of its name, third of its game. I like that. I like that. But first of its name, third of its game. There was Resident Evil 2, which was 1, Resident Evil 3, which was 2, Resident Evil the board game, which is the first one, which is now the third one, so 1 is now 3, and then this over here tells us that Resident Evil 4 is going to be Resident Evil 4, which is basically 4 is going to be 4. So like we finally got our sequences in order. Resident Evil the board game coming to Kickstarter at some point, but it's going to be more Resident Evil, which I'm both, as usual, happy and sad about at the same time. There's going to be a lot to get into today. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's move some of these boxes off to the side so I can actually unbox all the stuff that's in the way, and then read this nice letter from Sherwin over here. And then, first, our video sponsor. So, these unboxings of the channel are generally sponsored by OneSharpJoe. I'll have a link to his site down below, as well as a code you can use to get a discount on various things you buy. But OneSharpJoe is the place to go to get ahead and to get anything you want that is cool, deluxified, wooden, anything from these component trays over here. So you're going to see these component trays over here that you can go ahead and line up and create any number of configurations on your magnetic component trays that could drop into my coffee if I wasn't so certain that it wouldn't actually drop. But then past that, we've got all these different types of component tray holders. You can check those out, all clipping together smoothly and giving you a variety of options for your games. But also, he also has things like inserts and things, and inserts and boxes such as this Marvel United X-Men gigantic box full of too many things over here. This Marvel United box that holds all your Marvel United content, as well as Marvel Champions and Spirit Island and all of that, and also recently added Lorcana tokens as well. I hope by the time this video goes up, those should hopefully be ready to go on the site. But either way, I'll include a link to all of that down below, and let's go ahead and start off with Resident Evil, the board game, like the board game box, because we have Into the Darkness, we have Bleak Outpost, we have Director's Cut, and we have the board game. But first, the letter. Oh, and as usual, this is unboxing and rambling. If you're here for information about Resident Evil the board game, you shall get it because I have played the game. But if you're here for a general conversation about whatever happens to occur as we go through it, that's the main reason to be here. Resident Evil the board game. Survivors. On September 25th, 2017, at 20 o'clock GMT, I sat down in a deathly quiet and surprisingly cold studio, looked into a camera, and said, "Hey guys, this is Resident Evil 2. It was the launch of the first game I'd ever been entrusted to design. An adaptation of a video game I played so much. I could draw every map from memory and knew the location of every item, file, enemy, and cutscene. A game in a series which I had loved from the moment I'd first pressed the power button on my old PlayStation. Little did I know that the adventure would take me, and more importantly, little did I know the amazing community I'd see grow around our game. Since that evening, I had the privilege of traveling to the opposite sides of the planet and back again to meet and play the game with the same individuals, as well as spend countless hours speaking to them online on a huge array of platforms, and written well over 200 developer diaries as love letters not only to the game series but to the community itself. At every step of the way, I've been humbled by you. I frequently tell people you're the best community anyone could ever ask for, and I don't say that lightly. At the time of writing this, I've been fortunate enough to design 3 more games for this series and to work with some of the most talented people I've ever met, both amongst my colleagues at Steamforged Games and at Capcom. And honestly, I count myself lucky that I got to make these games, and in doing so give something back to the community with as much passion and commitment as you show us. A very personal thank you to every member of our tabletop Resident Evil family. And here's to the future. I'm not done making Resident Evil games for you, not by a long shot. After all, it's up to us to take down Umbrella. Sherwin Matthews. And then, of course, the next Resident Evil game that they're designing. I'm curious what they bring to the table with Resident Evil 4. I'm very curious because Resident Evil, when it first came out, was a game that I was very dismissive of. I mean, Steamforged, when they first started talking about the games, was a company that I was a little dismissive of. And so I am curious to see where the future goes on, well, both Steamforged and Resident Evil as a series. You see, my journey through Resident Evil through Steamforged, let's go ahead and open this box over here. My journey through Resident Evil and through Steamforged, effectively, I don't remember the exact sequence of things, but I remember when Resident Evil came out, I was running Board Game Co. I was buying and selling used games. And I just remember that I saw it show up, and people are like, you know, getting their copies. Ooh, this is fun. I like this. Look at this over here. Look at this little. Can you see? I don't even know if you probably can't. Oh! There you go. There you go. You can. Ah! It's a monster. A monster. Monster. This is fun. This is fun. I like this. Anyways, and then we have actual the location for all the various cards and things there. But this is the core game over here. I do like that little effect over there. We have our rulebook, which I don't know how long the rulebook is. I remember Resident Evil was not a hard game to actually learn. I've played through Resident Evil Season 3, or whatever it's called, Resident Evil 3, a bunch on the channel, or more specifically on Twitch, I think. I think I did on Twitch. I did a lot of solo games over on Twitch a while back, going through, like, you know, the whole adventure. I didn't end up finishing it. I went through a decent amount, maybe 9, 10 different scenarios, something like that. But either way, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil the board game, the main difference between this and Resident Evil 3 is the fact that the maps unlock as you go. So you have a degree of discovery in the game, not just puzzling, but a degree of discovery as you attempt to figure out how to conserve your ammunition, find more items, go through a bit of a campaign, encounter various bosses, all of that. But past that, the game seems to be fairly similar. Having played, the rulebook seems pretty simple, pretty basic, you know, pretty straightforward. I remember the rulebook was always one that seemed longer than it needed to be. Like, it had information, and the actual complexity of the game was very easy to run through. And then we have our scenario guide over here, which this I'm excited for. I'm not going to open this, you know what, actually I'm going to go ahead and read this myself just so I don't mess anything up for you. But in theory, first floor, now I'm confused. I'm confused how this plays out. Okay, I think it plays out like that. I'm just trying to read the maps over here, because in theory, the way these maps should play out, I'm not going to spoil anything just in case, but in theory they have these maps over here, and then the map should give you a degree of like what you start with. And I think that's what's happening. So I'm going to show you the very first one. Hopefully it's not spoilers here. But the very first floor over here, we have this map set up, and then we have this kind of grid. My assumption is this is telling you, hey, table space-wise, this is what you need to think of as you set things up. And that's one of the things that's, and then as you open the various doors, it's going to expand out into it in ways you don't necessarily know. And that's one of the things that's inherently complicated, because doing so, to a certain extent, does remove a dash of the mystery, because you at least know the map's going to sprawl in that direction. But I think it's functional for setup to the point that the trade-off is worth it. Now, one thing, this coffee's delicious, by the way. Too Many Bones coffee. It's back. Anyways, over here, not sponsored by Too Many Bones, not sponsored by Steamforge, just sponsored by OneSharpJoe. Anyways, over here, so one of the things that I believe they did differently with the new maps, I believe they focused on having them a little lighter than in Resident Evil 2 and 3, where the map tiles were darker. I have to do a compare and contrast to really tell you exactly whether that's, you know, how true that is, or how different the map tiles is, because I'm just going by memory here. Memory-wise, they look similar, I'll tell you that much. Like, looking at these map tiles, they definitely look dark. Like, I don't know if they look as dark as the Resident Evil 3 or 2. 2 I never played. I skipped past 2. Basically, let's just go through some map tiles over here. Nothing crazy. These are just like some basic map tiles showing you the various rooms, the hallways, the situations you're going to have over there. The various entrances will be used. Various tokens. You're going to have tokens for entrances, so you don't have to worry about the map tiles as much. Here we have our other punch boards and our ammunition dials for the various types of ammunition you'll find, from shotguns to flamethrowers. One of the downsides of dealing with a punch game as opposed to dealing with a video game is, in a video game, you don't necessarily know that you're going to find a grenade launcher. But in this game, because of the fact that you're going to punch this out, you know you're going to find a grenade launcher, which takes away some degree of mystery. Nothing crazy. But either way, and then we have over here, we have this larger tile. Again, they're still dark. There's no question they're still dark. And then we have our various tokens, or these are the things that I believe, I'm trying to remember how they work. I've played this game. I think those are the number of cards you draw. I don't remember. Some reward thing. Either way. But past that, so Resident Evil is a game system which you are going to, it's kind of a very zombicide style approach to things, in which you are exploring a map, trying to take down the baddies, trying to survive, trying to accomplish your goals. Where to first from a game like Zombicide is on how important the conservation of ammunition is, and how tense the scenarios and situations are. Basically, you are constantly trying to stay alive. You're doing everything you can to stay alive, and it's not a game which you feel powerful taking down hordes of zombies. It's a game which you feel like you have to run as much as you can to possibly try to survive in the game. It's just necessary. You need to run. The zombies are strong. You need to manage closing doors. You need to manage their attacks and how strong they are. Speaking of strong, this knife is good on the edge, but the point is not as sharp as I'd like. At least it didn't feel like it's catching there as much. Either way, so I think I said either way a lot now. Now we're going to try to stop saying that so I don't mess things up, as far as, not mess things up. So we have these cards over here. These cards will give you various layouts of the map. So you're going to draw a card. You'll be like, oh my gosh, we're drawing a card. What are we drawing? We're drawing this card over here. How do they dictate them? They call them. They have names on these sides over here, so you know which card to draw, but you don't know what's on the other side, unless of course you go through this and memorize them all, which you totally should not do. Then we have various enemies that you're going to have. The enemies are going to have the way they the way they see, I think it is. I can't remember what this one is, but they have their movement, their health, their various attack patterns depending on what card is on the pile. So all the enemies are going to act differently in small different ways, and they're scary. Frankly, they're scary. And the problem is you start the game, you start Resident Evil with having a few bullets. That's all you have. You have a few bullets in a gun, and shooting is like you're going to lose, you're going to miss as much as you hit. And so you're trying to be mindful of the fact that you don't have enough ammunition to just go in guns blazing. You have to be mindful of when you open doors, when you search for things, when you try to find more ammo, how you try to survive, managing all the all clear, the worst cards, and then the worst cards that get shuffled in. I find it interesting they have the oranges and they have these out of order in the oranges, which is not a problem, just from a factory standpoint. I'm curious of that. But either way, I said it either way again. You're trying to survive. That's the main point of Resident Evil. And Resident Evil 3, like I said already, from a few Resident Evil the board game, some small tweaks to the system, but then the main thing is the discovery, the sense of discovery as the maps slowly unlocked as you go. Here we have some events, it looks like. These are Special Tactics and Rescue Service. I have to remember exactly how these play out. I remember that there were things that in the middle of the game, you almost have like cutscenes. You'd have something you rescued, and then you have like an interaction point. I can't remember exactly. It's been a while. These are going to be the various cards that tell you what's happening at the end of each round, and the symbol that's in effect that will trigger different enemies and all that. So you're gonna have all this, and again, the goal is trying to find more ammunition before time runs out, before you run out of health, run out of bullets, run out of whatever, to close and open the doors and to explore the map and to deal with the various bosses that come up, because there will be a lot of bosses that come up in the game, and those bosses are scary, is what I'll say. They are scary, they're intimidating, they feel like they are a challenge to get through. Along the way, you're finding items that you can unlock throughout the course of a campaign. So we have this deck of cards over here. We have the B cards, we have the A cards, and these are going to give you various items, from the green herbs to the red herbs to the... We zoomed in all the way, I'm realizing now we are zoomed in. We have green herbs, we have red herbs, we have Modisc, we have Old Key, Broken Shotgun, Dagger, First Aid Spray, just a variety of things you'll slowly unlock through the course of the game. And I'm going to stop going through these because I don't feel the need to go through every single thing in this box over here. But we haven't done the miniatures yet, so let's go ahead and do the miniatures, taking a look at some of what we got here before we dive into the boxes. And once again, Resident Evil, as much as I like the game, and I do like the game a lot, again, have not played 2, I love 3, and the only reason I didn't bother finishing 3 is I'd rather play the board game. I'd rather play the one that has an exploratory map system. I just think it's a better way to engage with the game. But that doesn't mean that, as much as I like the game and I like the series, the miniatures have always been good to me, but not great. I am very curious to see what Resident Evil 4 brings to the table as far as the miniatures, because again, these are good miniatures. They are fine. They are good. Compared to the greater world of retail games that come out, these are excellent. Compared to what other companies have done and what Steamforged themselves have done on games like Bardsung or Elden Ring, these are just good. Or Monster Hunter World, those are great miniatures. So, we have these over here, which are going to be red, of course, which means they're going to show up a little less ideally in camera than I typically like. We're going to have all of these. I'm not going to show you every single miniature across every single thing because that would be way too much. I'm going to show you some basic doggos over here. This doggo who's trying to desperately tear your throat out as you try to survive. One thing, there was a fun little challenge we did when I streamed it over on Twitch. I streamed it over to the Camp Co-op community, and one of the challenges we had was a try not to kill the dogs challenge. So we'd have angry dogs snarling down the hallway trying to kill me, and I was trying to finish and win missions without killing any dogs, because how could you possibly kill a dog? It's a zombie, but it's also a dog. Humans, doesn't really matter there. We can kill the humans, but the doggos are so precious and cute, and we have to hold out hope for any sense of safety. For the record, I don't have that value system. I value the humans more, but it was a fun little challenge. Thematically and entertainment-wise, I can get behind that system. I probably should... The problem with this little thing over here is we have a little dial over here. And this over here is going to be, you know, a bunch of dice for your Resident Evil game. So you have extra dice, which is very helpful, but also you have a fun little vial. The problem is I need to consolidate this stuff ASAP, and I plan on consolidating this ASAP. This is a game that's sticking around for a bit. Although, again, the challenge is, what do I do with this? Do I just play this and then get rid of it when Resident Evil 4 comes out? Because Resident Evil 3 I already got rid of in preparation for this, for Resident Evil, the board game. I don't know yet. I have a lot of zombicides, but how many, if anything, do I need? Zombicide I have too much, and I'm already worried about what more there'll be. In Resident Evil, I should probably show you some good guys too, that makes sense. In Resident Evil, I don't feel like I love the system enough to have more than one version of it, but I do love the system enough that I kind of want to finish Resident Evil. I'll probably consolidate this, because I don't know how long it'll take. I don't know if it's something I'm going to do very quickly or something I'm going to do slowly. I don't know how it's going to play out. What I do know is I very much enjoy Resident Evil, and I'm looking forward to diving into this one. I'd say as soon as I possibly can. I don't know, do I do the solo? Do I play the solo? Do I do like a bit of a solo campaign system? Do I do like, you know, streaming every night? I don't know. I like streaming. streaming is interesting. There's a bit of a side journey of camp co-op and what's been going on over there. Let's talk about that, okay? If you don't know, we're going to do some background. We're going on a deep dive, and I do know I have to come back to my opinion of Resident Evil and my interactions with the series and my thoughts on it, and Steam Force as well. I will come back to all of that, but that's going to come back later. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go on a tangent of Board Game Co., Camp Co-op, Devin, Professor Meg, all of those things as we go through the rest of this video. Why? Because I just started talking about streaming, and that's just where we're going to go. So, to that end, I'm going to keep this letter. It's nice. It's a nice letter. To that end, here's where we are on Camp Co-op. So, Camp Co-op is something that started around May-ish of 2022. It was an excuse, effectively, for myself to play through Gloomhaven, Gloomhaven Digital, because Gloomhaven Physical, I like the idea of it, but in practice, it's a lot of work to set up. And so I wanted to play through Gloomhaven, and Professor Meg, who I knew and was friends with, was like, hey, let's play through this and stream the whole thing. And I was like, that's a good idea. Let's do that until we finish Gloomhaven, and then we'll evaluate what we want to do after that. We still have not finished Gloomhaven. We're close. We're getting close to the end, but we still not finished Gloomhaven. And along the way, we streamed a whole bunch of other things. So here we go. Let's go ahead and open this up. We have the director's cut over here. So I'm going to take a tangent from my story. This is how the stories on unboxings go like this. They are a little bit all over the place. We got some baddies. I am curious to see what what Steam Forge does with 4. Because I know that in Elden Ring and in Monster Hunter World, they've started to add sculptured bases. They've upped their miniature game, and it was already good to begin with. I'm very curious to see what happens with Capcom and how they work with that. Anyways, we have a director's cut over here. More baddies. The Crimson Head. Oh, that guy. He was not fun to deal with. The Crimson Head prototype was not fun. We have new enemies, new characters, alternate game modes, a trader mode. There's a freaking trader mode? I don't love that. I kind of like it, but I don't know. The problem is is that a how many characters do you need? I'm curious how many characters you need, because I'm very intrigued by what character count that works best at and how it plays out. But either way, again, I said either way. So Real Survivor cards, knife only mode, that's fun. Battle game mode, playing the game. So there's a bunch of modes and of various enemies, all good stuff. Let's go ahead and see what we got as far as anything outside of miniatures, because, oh, we got nothing outside of miniatures. This is a large box that did not need to be so large. No, but, like, really, I don't know what I'm missing here. This is, like, gigantically, unnecessarily large. This could have been a, like, much thinner box. It could have been, like, 2 inches thinner. There's, like, nothing underneath it. There's nothing propped up. I mean, I'm consolidating stuff anyway, but for somebody who's mindful of box space, this is a wasted box, just for the record. I feel, oh... On the other hand, on the sides of the box, it has backer names. So unless they want it to go smaller, I guess maybe that's why that's the case. Is that what's going on here? That's a wall of backer names. Am I on there? I don't imagine I am. And I also have to remember what I did. Did I do my real name? Probably. Let's see. I'm going to look for just Radcliffe and not Board Game Co. Because it could be under several things. Barrios, Schmidt, Saya. I can't find. These names are tiny. They could not have gone smaller. Ridiger. Oh my gosh, it's based on first name. It's based on first name. It's based on first name. This is not even the start of it, is it? It probably starts... I'm not doing this. I'm sorry. I'm not going to spend the whole day trying to find this. I think it's on other boxes too. Anyways, so we have cards. I'm not going to go through all the cards. I think there's a limit to that. We have these various things who I have fought in the past over here. These guys, they're not fun, but they are fun at the same time. We have the Crimson Head. He is someone who I definitely fought against, and he was intimidating. Although I think once you get used to them, once you power up, and this is the way things should be in games, when you encounter an enemy, when you encounter a boss, you should be terrified of it, but then you should get more firepower, and the next time you encounter something along those lines, it should be less threatening than it was the first time, which is how it plays out. We have a little spider. Honestly, I feel more for the spider than I do the dogs. Like, that's a cute spider. You can almost feel the hair in it. And we have this little pile of snakes or some sort of situation. Yeah, snakes. Definitely snakes. Snakes on a knot plane. We have a variety of characters to go through, but first we have these birds and these regular... Did I show you the zombies already? I showed you some. Let's show you some more of these over here. We have some birds and some of these. Look at the little flock of birds and that little zombie dude there. And then we're going to show you some characters. There's a bunch of characters. I guess I'll show you all of them because characters are like characters. I mean, let's go ahead and show you. Anyways, so as I was saying about Camp Co-op, as I was going through it, so Camp Co-op started with the intent to play Gloomhaven, and then it branched out to like adding things here and there. We've played through Hoplomachus, we've finished Roleplay Adventures, we've played through some Frosthaven and not live content. We do live and non-live content. Things slowed down heavily in Frosthaven. Travel's been insane, and we're putting a break on Frosthaven for now. We will come back to Frosthaven, although I don't know exactly how or where it's going to play out. But past that, what happened along the way as well is one of the things I experimented early on is playing through games myself, solo. I used it as an opportunity to stream every, twice a week, whatever it is. One of the things I streamed was Resident Evil, the board game. Or no, Resident Evil 3, whatever it was. And so I streamed through a lot of that just solo on my own. Some things I did with Professor Meg, some things she did herself. She still does Final Girl Fridays, or still is relative, but more recently does Final Girl Fridays. And so we stream both together and separately on Camp Co-op. Now, when I said Devin as well, this is completely separate from Devin. Devin, myself, and Meg all do stuff on the Board Game Co channel. Devin a little less so now. He's taken a job with Lucky Duck, and so his availability is lower, as can be expected. Prioritizing that, which makes sense. But he's still around. He's still my boo. And what we do together on Board Game Co is separate from what we do together. We're going to do Into the Darkness now. Except from what we do together from what Meg and I do on Camp Co-op, although Devin is very much part of our Camp Co-op community. We have a fun little Discord, lots of fun people. We are hopefully picking up streaming soon. It's been too long. We have gone on a hiatus because of a lot of travel, and so we're picking that up shortly to see where that goes. But anyways, that's kind of a bit of background of where things have sort of been. But streaming a lot, streaming together and solo, and that's when I dove into Resident Evil 3 to go through who knows how long of that. And I did it for a while. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process of streaming on a regular basis. I enjoyed playing games. The way I put it at the time was, why would I ever play a game solo when I could play a game solo but with friends? And the answer, by the way, is technical issues, scheduling, and things like that. Like the committing to hey, I'm going to pop in at 10 o'clock on Wednesday morning is very different than, hey, I'm going to pull a game off the shelf because it's currently what I feel like doing. Granted, you could stream by just doing impromptu, like, hey, by the way, I'm streaming, but, different conversation. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I'm very intrigued to what happens with Camp Co-op, with Board Game Co, with the way that all plays out, because there are things happening. So, back to over here. We have the Yawn, we have the Black Tiger over here. 2 bosses. Ooh, the bosses. The bosses. Okay. So, new gameplay rules, expanded the campaign, rules for massive bases. Oh, moving the Yawn around, second floor EC. So there's scenarios and things in here. I won't mess that up too much, but it looks like it's campaign expansions based around bosses. That's what we got for the Into the Darkness expansion here. But we have tiles over here. I guess I'll go ahead and open the tiles. I don't know. Let's go ahead and open the tiles. Why not? So, in terms of what's happening with there, so one of the things that Meg and I have talked about a bit is it's very hard, practically speaking, juggling. Oh, wait, no. So the timeline thing. So then as Devin shifted away from doing preview content because of he's doing Lucky Duck, Meg took over the preview content of Board Game Co. And definitely, like, if you watch the videos, you see there's a shift where I think at first it was much more Devin than Meg. That has shifted over time just because of that job transition. And so now it's Devin still around, but it's more Meg than Devin. And to that end, one of the things we've been talking about is the nature of juggling 2 channels, or should we just consolidate Camp Co-op into Board Game Co? Should we just bring over those gameplays into Board Game Co, and people who want to watch them can watch them, people who don't want to watch them don't want to watch them? I find it's very hard. I've tried this with Quack & Co in the past. I've tried it with Camp Co-op. I find it's very hard to actively maintain 2 different channels. It is doable, but I'm putting up so many videos that my focus and attention is on one channel, jumping back and forth to manage comments, jumping back and forth to manage schedules. Those are things that are just, it's so, even though I'm only doing like 1 video a week on Camp Co-op, it's just so much harder to have that back and forth. Anyways, so we have over here, all these cards, the boss encounters, some more things, the scenario stuff you're going to be looking at, nothing you'd necessarily want to see there. And then we have the various bosses who are fun. Remember that fun little spider I saw? Now we have the spider as a big buddy friend. This little guy, this black tiger, who's not a tiger. It's a giant spider who's going to eat your face off, which is good. Eating your face off is good. Let's put this away. And then we have this snake guy, who, again, I'd love a textured base on this. You can see over here that base takes away a little bit, but it's still a very cool Gary. It turns out size sometimes does matter, at least when it comes to miniatures. Anyways, that's what's going on over there. That's what's going on with the Camp Co-op situation, sort of. So we're figuring things out there. No decisions have been made firmly. So we're still streaming over on Camp Co-op for right now, but that might change over time. It might be shifted all over to Board Game Co as we continue to do more gameplays over here, and just trying to figure out a way to balance. Like, the thing I'm always nervous of, and it's a hard thing to balance. Dice Tower, I mean, kudos to Dice Tower for everything they do and how they do it, but how do you ensure that you give people the content they want while not overwhelming them with so much content that they just walk away because it's just too much? That's always the balance. Like, if you're not interested in gameplays, if you're not interested in reviews, one option is fracturing into different channels, letting people choose and subscribe to things they care about. The problem is that involves me managing multiple channels and involves a lower growth on all channels, as people don't necessarily have the opportunity to see things. The other opportunity is putting it all on one channel, but then you will have people who walk away. You will have people who sit there and say, you know what, I'm only here for the Kickstarter content every single Monday, and my feed is being flooded with 20 videos a week so that I can watch this one video. And sometimes people unsubscribe. Lord knows that over the past 12 years, I've subscribed and unsubscribed from the Dice Tower like 4 or 5 times because of that exact issue. I'm currently subscribed. I currently decided the value I get from it is too high, and it is what it is. I'm going to go ahead and deal with the fact that there's more content than I actually care about watching. But that is a regular question mark, and so I want to try to balance that. I just don't know how to. Even now, there's too many videos, and if I add the streaming content over here, there might be 2 or 3 more videos a week. How do you balance it all? And if I add solo gameplay content, I'm not going to do that. At least not yet. We'll see. So, Bleak Outpost over here. More content over here for this. Here we have the Plan 42 and Neptune. I don't believe I fought either of those. I do believe those were present in some of the earlier, I believe Resident Evil 3 had one or both of those, if I'm not mistaken. Well, so that's kind of the, I guess, overall backdrop of where Camp Co-op, where streaming is, where all those things are. I want to get back to more streaming. Just life is complicated, life is busy, and there's too many things happening at any given time that you just can't. You can't do everything you want to do. And so you got to decide what you currently want to make time for, and the answer is I want to make time for board games. The how, the where, the details, that we'll figure out together. As far as my journey with Steamforge, ooh, this is fun. So, as far as my journey with Resident Evil 2 came out, and people had their copies, and some people were selling. I was running Board Game Co., not the YouTube channel, but the retail operation, and therefore I would see when people, like, got a new Kickstarter and were starting to, like, sell it or all that stuff. And so it was never a game, this is cool, it was never a game that I had been aware of on crowdfunding, or not well. My crowdfunding journey started a little bit later than Resident Evil 2, if I'm not mistaken. And so it showed up, and I was intrigued, and I kept an eye on, the demand for the game, because that's the thing I would be mindful of, the demand for a game. Not whether the game is even good, just whether people wanted it. It doesn't matter if a game is good, if people want it, at least from the stance of being a board game seller. From a board game reviewer, it doesn't matter whether people want it, it matters whether the game is good. Although then there's a question of why do people want it, and that's a different conversation. But Resident Evil 2 was a game that was sought after enough that it became on my radar. Look at this plant guy. But it wasn't so sought after that it became a very premium, overpriced game. It was in demand to an extent, and the miniatures didn't impress me, and the game didn't know much about, and I just didn't need another Zombicide-style game in my life on a personal level. I'm trying to think timeline-wise whether I was into Zombicide yet. Don't know. But I poked up the knife by the blade. That's the downside of this one. So I kind of was aware of it, but didn't feel the need to hunt it down. Resident Evil 3 came out, and the same kind of situation for me. Didn't feel the need to hunt it down. I was aware, by the way. One of the things that's interesting is I was aware that both games had high ratings but lower fan bases, if that makes sense. They had, and this happens a lot on Board Game Geek, you'll see that. You'll have Tenaris Adventures is a game that has an incredibly high rating, but relatively speaking, a lower fan base compared to a lot of other games. That's true with Resident Evil as well. They had high ratings but lower fan bases. Resident Evil 3 had higher ratings than Resident Evil 2, and Resident Evil 2 already had pretty decent ratings. And those all came out. We have more cards and not spending too much time on them to not spoil things for you. But I was aware of the game, and the Resident Evil 3 came out, and I was aware of that, and that's kind of it for Resident Evil. Now, along the road and the pathway here, Steamforge Games was a company that I kind of became really aware of Steamforge for the first time because of Dark Souls, but then also because, peripherally because of Dark Souls. I was aware of Dark Souls, and it was, received, and it had both people who liked it, but issues with it. They've also since relaunched or reapproached the series. I need to dive into Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm so overdue in Horizon Zero Dawn content. I've been reading the rulebook, by the way. I'm mostly finished the rulebook to dive into Horizon Zero Dawn again, because I want to, it's been a while since I played it, and I really want to get out the base game, give it a full shot, not like the 2 or 3 half plays I've given it. I want to really give it a proper shot and go through it, because I like the game. Separate kind of conversation. Horizon Zero Dawn came out on crowdfunding, and I was covering the game, and I remember being critical of Steamforge, being like, hey, this is a company that they make very cool looking games, they work with IPs, but Dark Souls wasn't received the best, and had issues, and had delays, and all these things, so buyer beware, backer beware. That's the conversation on the table. That was Horizon Zero Dawn. That conversation continued with Bardsung. Bardsung as well was a kind of similar conversation. Me expressing interest but hesitancy. Bardsung looked very intriguing. The miniatures I loved. I was very, very compelled by the game. But ultimately, I was still mindful that it was coming from Steamforged, and to me, based on my experience, based on my knowledge of them, they had yet to develop a track record that I was comfortable with them. And so I was like, hey, buyer beware, backer beware. It is like they have delivered, they have done their things, but also still Dark Souls is still a conversation. There are so many cards in here. There are so many cards in here. There's just cards after cards after cards. I don't even want to open this. It's going to cause a mess. What even is in this pack? What do we have here? I'm going to put this back. I'm not going to go through all these cards. There's just a lot of cards. What is the main intent and goal of this? We have the board game, the retro pack. The stand now in the mansion Eerie Front Hall, gasping for breath, etc., etc. This mansion contains over 600 retro-themed cards for your copy of Resident Evil the board game. Is it any different? Is it any different mechanically, or is it literally just a re-theming? Like you can see over here, they have the very pixelated art over there. I'm curious. I'm curious if it's more than just whatever. I'm curious. Anyways, so doing Bard Song was when Steamforged reached out and said, hey, we saw your channel, we saw your content, we'd love to have a conversation and have you demo the game. And so I did. I hopped on a call with, I want to say Sherwin and Matt, I could be wrong, but either way, I played through Bard Song, played through a boss fight, and I enjoyed it with caveats. My opinion at the time, I did a video, I basically talked about how, hey, I see potential in this game, but to me, most of the potential comes from building out your characters. I'm very intrigued by that. Is there anything new over here, or just more? Monster box. There seems to be just more over here. I don't think there's anything new. I'll show you. There's dogs, there's zombies, there's just some stuff you've already seen over here. So, I played the game, I enjoyed it, but not yet sold in it. But I was like, hey, I'm going to back it because anyway, it's going to hold its value just fine. So I'll take a risk, I'll take a gamble. And sure enough, I went ahead and backed it. I also sold it for more than I paid for it, so that holds true. I remember after I got rid of it, I gave the game like 15 hours or so and then gave up on it. And I liked Bard Song. I thought it was fun. My biggest issue with it was that it was a little too grindy relative to the payoff of gameplay, which was a concern that Dark Souls had as well. And so, by the way, along this storyline, I think I played Bard Song, then I played Resident Evil the board game, then I got Bard Song, the final game. So somewhere in the story I had played Resident Evil the board game, which we'll come back to. But, oh, more characters. More characters. Are there more characters? I think so. There are the alternate sculpts, the Kickstarter exclusives over here. A bunch of these over here. These will show you some of them. I'll go through them. But we have Bard Song, which I remember after I got rid of Bard Song, I got a comment from someone saying, oh my gosh, I thought you said you loved this game and now you're getting rid of it. What is that? What are you talking about? And I said, I never said I loved this game. I said I was intrigued by this game. I enjoyed it, but I also had concerns, and I said I'll back it because I'll sell it for more than what I paid for it if it's not for me. And I did sell it for more than what I paid for, and it is a game that I do enjoy. I gave it 15 hours of my life, but didn't enjoy enough to give it 100 hours of my life. I mean, even games like Gloomhaven, by the way. Gloomhaven, as much as I love it, 100 hours in, I am waning on Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven was my number 3 game of all time last year. It is not going to be my number 3 game of all time this year. It's still high. You can't deny what Gloomhaven is, but grind is a thing that can take it out on you. You can lose some of your appreciation for the experience because of grind, and so how you hold a gamer's attention, both in video games and in board games, is a fascinating conversation. Even all of this, I love Resident Evil, one of my favorite games from Steamforged. I think if I had to rank my Steamforged games experience, it may well be Resident Evil the board game, then Elden Ring, with the caveat that I have to give Elden Ring more time. I've only given it like 3 hours. Then maybe Horizon Zero Dawn. No, Monster Hunter. Then Monster Hunter, then Horizon Zero Dawn. And I have complaints and critiques about all of them. I have things that get in the way of the experience in all of them. But overall, I enjoy all those games. So, going back to, that's my kind of timeline with Resident Evil, with Steamforged, and then from there I continue to work with them, and I've liked some of what they've put out, I've had complaints with some of what they've put out. I think Horizon Zero Dawn is a good example of one where I think that I hope they redo Horizon Zero Dawn at some point, because, you know, they have Forbidden West, obviously, so they have that opportunity, that potential, but I think Horizon Zero Dawn is a very cool system that needs to be cleaned up a bit, or adjusted based on the way players engage with the game. But I do think it has a lot of potential and promise, and also it needs to be better able to be consolidated into boxes too. We have the terrain box, and then I think we're mostly done. Oh, we have Gametrayz. Oh, we have Gametrayz. I forgot about that. So the terrain box over here is going to be things like this. We have my voice is starting to go over here. We have these little things over here. I don't even know what they are as far as pathways go. These are going to be fun on the map, though. I like these. We have our doors. Yes, they are doors that open. We have our mansion doors that open up over here. These are fun. And then we have, I'm just going to open up various packages. These are more doors. Are they more doors? These are more doors. That's a different kind of conversation. These are vault doors here. So we got these. And again, opening up just fine. There we go. That's going to open and swing open, and we're going to have our these, which are locked open doorways, because sometimes in the game you have to have a doorway that remains open, that you cannot adjust in any way, shape, or form. That would be these. We have our ladders and bridges, which will be here. Are these bridges, or no, these are banisters. Banisters, I wonder how and where these go. And then we also have our walls or something. Again, I'm very curious how these actually go on the board and what way, but they are very cool. And then we have these dead corpse tokens. I think I'm just going to dump these all back into the box. No, I can't do that. I can't do that. We have our dead corpses. These are nice. These are much better than the corpse tokens you're going to have. These often go on the map, and there's something that if you walk into the space, you have to be mindful that you might reanimate a corpse, which is definitely always a fun thing. But it forces you to make decisions about when and how you do things. We have file cabinets. Oh, I love it. Here's a file cabinet. These are nice. These are nice little additions to the game. I don't even know if Resident Evil 3 ever had these. I think Resident Evil 3 I only ever had a retail copy of the game, I believe. I'm trying to think back. I know I didn't back it. I think I only ever had a retail version of the game with 3, and now this I think is the full Kickstarter version. Point is, where are we with Steamforge? So I worked with Steamforge, continue to work with them, have had complaints about some things, enjoyed others, and have overall, like for example, what's that game they had? RuneScape, is that what it is? Is RuneScape? These are not going to fit in. I don't know how these fit in the first time. RuneScape, if I'm not mistaken. That's a game that I enjoyed, but like it's so, comparatively speaking, light. Like that is a game that is about the peaceful experience and tranquil desire to experience something more so than anything else. This, I don't know how these fit in the first time. We're just going to shove this all back in, hope it works. But yeah. RuneScape is Shadows of Alvarg, or whatever it was. I enjoyed that, and I'm happy to play through it with my kids as like an adventure game, but that's the key thing. I'm playing through it with my kids as an adventure game. It's not going to be a game that I pull out and play with my like hardcore game group looking for a campaign experience. We have our player boards over here, our Neoprene playmats over here. These are always fun, so these will be good to give you more of a, you know, deluxified play area for each player, which will go on top of that. And then lastly, we have we already showed you the dice thingamajig. And then lastly, we have this. Now, I fully plan on consolidating all of this. I don't know when exactly. I might do it after this video. I should do it after this video. You see, contrasted with Horizon Zero Dawn, I never consolidated it, because Horizon Zero Dawn is a game system that I enjoy, but I don't think I would keep it in its current form. Again, I do hope they redo it, but in its current form, I think that Horizon Zero Dawn... How does this work? The problem with the consolidating... I'm going to have to consolidate it after this video, because I think that... I'm wondering now if the stretch goals box is meant to have space for all of this over here, so you can always put it into a single box, which might make things easier. I have to look at some videos online and see how this is meant to operate, because frankly that will determine what I do as far as keeping all the stuff. But maybe I'll do that now. I don't know. I feel like this is a game where I don't care about the inserts at all. I feel this is a bag and put it into like 1 or 2 boxes. I might do that now. I don't know if I care about this. I should repackage this, because I think I'm gonna check if somebody else wants a Gametrayz system. I don't even know, is there any... I'll see if I can gift it away, because I don't think I need this. Anyways, that's basically where we are. So that's kind of where, and then Resident Evil, the board game. So along this pathway, I played through Resident Evil, the board game, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect walking into it, because I was kind of expecting a Zombicide adjacent experience, and I got a Zombicide adjacent experience, but with a tension that was just not there otherwise. I often compare Resident Evil to being a hybrid of Nemesis and Zombicide, 2 game systems that have a lot to offer, and I think it is almost like, I mean, Nemesis has such a degree of cult fan base around it that it's hard to compare anything to Nemesis without being worried about the reaction, but I think it has tonalities for Nemesis, and I think Nemesis has a lot of promise and potential and things. For me, Nemesis is a game system that I've enjoyed, but frankly, for me, I've enjoyed Resident Evil much more, and that's... I don't know, personal preference and all that. Like I think Nemesis is arguably a better game just based on the way it's been received. But for me, I've had a better time with Resident Evil. I've played through a decent amount of Resident Evil, and I'm looking forward. Again, I'm consolidating all of this after this video. This may leave my collection one day, but it's not leaving my collection yet, and it's going to stick around for a bit. And I intend to hold on to this. We'll see what happens down the road, but I intend to hold on to this. I think the only real caveat is that stupid Resident Evil 4. Like, just put out, I mean, this is the way it works. This is the way it works. You put out more, and you continue to put out more, and you always put out more and more, and then it's our job to just keep up or give up as far as that journey, that chase. And it's a balance. It's a delicate balance as far as trying to figure out when you're ensuring that your chase is enhancing your hobby and when it's hurting your hobby. And everyone has to know that line for themselves. For me, it's very much enhancing my hobby, but I have to be mindful of it at the same time. I like the game. Resident Evil. I'll have a full review of it at some point when I've had a chance to properly dive into it more. My previous review was more of a first impressions, because when I played it last, I only had 2 snares in my belt. I later dove in for more TTS gameplay because I liked it, and played against some of the bosses. It's a good game. I'm looking forward to playing it. There may or may not be content, gameplay content on the channel. That I'll have to see, but time will tell. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.